Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Aaron.
Aaron is back. Welcome back, everyone, for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. The subject of today's video is the piece of the Scientology brainwashing, Scientology conditioning, being trained to think in certain ways in Scientology. The piece of all of that has been the absolute hardest to shake and to get rid of. The piece that has been hardest to shake is the piece I wasn't even aware existed. This was totally either beyond or beneath my perception. This has hit me like a ton of bricks lately, and it's like my mind is blown at having spotted this piece that I didn't even realize I was holding on to because I didn't even realize it was bad. And once I spotted this, I then immediately could recall many instances when people had almost jokingly said that this was one of my weaknesses. And I would kind of laugh it off like, yeah. Because it was a weakness I actually considered to be a strength. It's one of those things like in a job interview, you're like, what's your greatest, what your greatest strengths and your greatest weakness? And you're like, my weakness is that I just work too hard. I just care too much. It's kind of a bit of a cliche to say that in a job interview because nobody wants to actually say what they're weak in. I just dedicate myself too much to the job, and sometimes I burn myself out because I just care too much. And this, I got to tell you guys, I'm so excited to even talk about this because I wonder how many people out there still under the radar Scientologists, former Scientologists, for whom this might also be true. It has to do with step one of Scientology's lower ethics conditions, which is Scientology's special form of, in some cases, it's punishment, but it is really thought conditioning, thought reconditioning. It is auto-brainwashing. Scientology's lower ethics conditions. When you hear a Scientologist say, oh yeah, I was in a lot of trouble, a very common question is, what does that mean to be in trouble in Scientology? What it means is you are assigned a lower ethics condition. And each one of these conditions has a condition formula, an exact series of steps that you're supposed to follow and do and execute and write out in order to then have it reviewed by the ethics officer, and the ethics officer approves that you are okay to come out of that lower ethics condition, and you're promoted to the next higher lower ethics condition until you finish all the lower ethics conditions. And when you're out of lowers, as they call them, when you're out of lowers, you're no longer in trouble. You're considered a normal, accepted member of the group again. Now, any good Scientologist or staff member or Sea Org member has done lower ethics conditions probably hundreds of times. I mean, some real old timers, it could even be thousands. Like these lower ethics conditions are how Scientologists brainwash themselves over and over and over again. Step one of the liability formula is decide who are your friends. Now, you don't do this step by saying Peter, Mary, Paul, Joseph, and Jesus. You're not allowed to say, well, my friend is Steve, my friend is John. Because what if Steve and John aren't contributing, high-producing group members? Are they really your friends? So how are you supposed to do this step? The fact that I spent pretty much my entire adolescent and young adult life going through these motions to define for myself who my friends are, or what criteria you would use to determine whether someone is your friend. It never even occurred to me that this was one of the negative parts of Scientology. Now, let me show you something. The condition of liability formula here. The condition of liability. So I have brought up, oh, I'm sharing a different page here. This is the condition of liability. Now you have to understand that I've done one of the courses where you basically look up every single word in a dictionary in the entire formula. So these words I take these words quite literally. These words have been emblazoned into my consciousness and all possible meanings thoroughly examined and thought about and chewed on. So this might seem like a casual little exercise to someone who's just seeing it for the first time. But to me, these things have weight to them. So, now, for example, let's look at this paragraph right here at the top of the page. It is a liability to have such a person unwatched, as the person may do or continue to do things to stop forward progress of his group. This person cannot be trusted. This is an effort to describe a person who is in a condition of liability. So in Scientology, if you've been assigned the condition of liability, or if you've been assigned condition lower than liability and you finish those and now you're working on liability, it is emblazoned into your consciousness. You are now someone who has graduated up to being someone who cannot be trusted. Before that, you were even worse. Now that you're working on liability, you're someone who cannot be trusted. Now, these formulas, the steps of the formula, once completed, you are now someone who can be trusted. Okay. It is a liability to have such a person unwatched, as the person may do or continue to do things to stop forward progress of his group. This person cannot be trusted. Any efforts to correct him so he keeps to the rules or agreements have not worked. The person just keeps on messing up. For example, when all other office staff are looking for the reason mail is getting lost, a person in the condition of liability keeps on secretly losing the mail. I think it's kind of interesting to look at that sentence and go, how does one secretly lose the mail? That's called hiding the mail or stealing the mail. But it's one of these things in Scientology. If someone were to just regularly accidentally lose things, the perspective would be you're doing it on purpose. There's no grace given. And it's sort of almost accidentally reflected in this sentence that you keep on secretly losing the mail. Okay. Now, actually, there was another sentence here that I saw before. There was a different sentence that I saw. Anyway, it said that this condition is assigned so that this person will not no one will make the mistake of trusting this person. So look at this. Decide who your friends are. Well, you might go, well, geez, it doesn't even tell you how to go about deciding. That's what the ethics officer is there for. The ethics officer is there to coach you through what you're actually expected to do in order to decide who your friends are. Now, I went through all of my files because I have all my personal files from when I was in the Sea organization. And I pulled up 2 examples of liability formulas that I did to show you an actual real world example of how Scientology brainwashes you into believing that someone is your friend if they are engaged in an activity similar to yours, assuming that activity is beneficial, i.e. Scientology. If someone is engaged in Scientology, if someone is a high producer, if someone donates a lot of money, if someone is a person who generally is considered to be forwarding the aims of Scientology, that person is by definition your friend. And I say this from personal experience of being in Scientology for 30 years. It never even occurred to me until just recently. At no point does Scientology ever say that you should consider how someone actually treats you as a person when deciding whether they are your friend. This never even occurred to me. This never even occurred to me. Okay, let me make sure I don't have my screen share. How do I share these Word docs? Okay, here's one. All right, check this out, guys. This is way back in July 2005. I think I left the Sea Org in May 2006. Liability formula. Decide who are one's friends. My friends are those Sea Org members who use all the tools available to address and handle any problem encountered on post, whether that means using ethics tools, tech tools, or admin tools, and who do not resort to off-policy solutions, unusual solutions, or destructive actions, which only worsen the scene and not improve it. This condition in relation to my having been removed from post as the technical secretary of Asho Day for creating interbulation and for some false reports. If I remember correctly, some of those false reports had to do with intensives completed in the HGC, where the HGC admin would go into the folders and look for unused admin time. And anyone who spent time in the Sea Org knows that when you get in trouble and you're trying to get back into the good graces, you have to admit to a whole bunch of things and pretend they were really bad when really, in most cases, they weren't. This step, decide who are one's friends. It's interesting. It is a special form of Scientology brainwashing to think that just because someone works with the same group that you work with, that they are by definition your friend. It is interesting. There's no reason in the world that this step couldn't simply say, decide who are the group members. Decide what type of group member you would aspire to be like, right? It very much uses the word friends. It is very much a Scientology brainwashing aspect. Brainwashing is a bit of a pejorative, and it doesn't have much meaning, but I think most people know what I mean. I'm just using it loosely. It is very much a Scientology brainwashing aspect to think that just because someone is a Scientologist, that they are your friend. What if that Scientologist treats you like shit? Why in the world should you need to think of that person as a friend? These lower conditions, this lower condition in particular, this first step of this lower condition, I'll speak for myself, has conditioned me over the many decades to think that just because someone is doing something similar to what I'm doing or has the same general purpose or goal, that they are my friend, I should think of them as my friend. I should want them to be my friend. I should treat them like a friend, regardless of whether there's any actual objective evidence in the real world that this person is a friend. Scientology defines friend as group member. Scientologists think of this even in groups that don't have to do with being on staff or being in the Sea Org. So, like, I worked one of the companies I worked at here in Clearwater after leaving the Sea Org is a Scientologist-run marketing company called Postcard Mania. A Scientologist who works at Postcard Mania, doing these lower conditions, which the staff there, the Scientology staff there do, would think that any productive employee of Postcard Mania is their friend. What a weird way to train someone to think. Why would it even be desirable or necessary to be friends with everyone who works at your job? Could you imagine being in a large governmental organization or department, like a huge one, like the FBI? If a Scientologist were doing lower conditions as, as an FBI agent or an employee of the FBI, their friends would be people who are accomplishing the aims of the FBI. Very often I can think of many examples in my life. I can even think of times that I've said this in my videos. I consider everyone to be a friend until they show me that they're not. That to me has always felt like a very positive, optimistic, kind of altruistic way of going about life. And the thing is, though, when I say that, I actually meant it literally. Like, it doesn't mean I treat everyone as pleasantly as I would treat my actual friends. No, I meant it literally, because this is how I have always been trained to think. You sit down, you do the liability formula, you decide who are one's friends. People who are, producing, being ethical and productive and dedicated and have up statistics. Those are my friends. Who cares if they treat you like shit? Who cares if here, I put some thoughts down here. Who cares if they haven't demonstrated that you can personally trust them? Who cares if they've never demonstrated any loyalty to you whatsoever, and in fact have already demonstrated a lack of it? Who cares if they have a history of not being honest with you? Who cares if they have no empathy whatsoever for you? Who cares if they don't actually support you in ways that are meaningful in times where it counts? Who cares if they don't even demonstrate any particular respect for you other than the value they can derive from you? Who cares if you can't depend on them when you really need someone? Who cares if they're constantly judging you and don't really show any forgiveness? But they're a high producing staff member and a Sea Org member. They're my friend. So it's funny because this aspect of thinking everyone's your friend just because you're engaged in a similar activity or have a similar goal, for me has always been like, yeah, that's a great way to go through life. It's a very stupid way to go through life. It's a very stupid way of thinking. How disrespectful, kind of, if you think about it, to the people in your life who have actually shown that you can trust them, that they are loyal to you, that they are honest to you and with you about you, that who do empathize with you, who have supported you in ways that matter when it matters, who absolutely respect you, both in public and in private, who you can depend on, and who don't judge you. How insulting is it to the people in your life, which are almost certainly to be a small group of people? How insulting is it to the people in your life who've actually demonstrated that to you, to treat and think of near perfect strangers and acquaintances the same way that you would think of and treat that small core of people? I mean, this has just hit me like a ton of bricks lately. And I was like, I all of a sudden started to see all the ways in which thinking everyone is your friend opens you up to so much bad things. So much bad stuff, so many bad things. Confiding in people who have no intention of keeping your confidence. Um I mean, I can just think of so many ways. It's one of these things where, and I'm probably starting to repeat myself because I actually do like repeating myself, but it's like, it's one of these things where once I saw this, I was like, how has this never, ever occurred to me before? This is one of these lessons that now that it's like become crystal, like laser, like in laser focus, right? This is the lesson I should have learned about a dozen times already. They say some lessons need to be learned the hard way. I I I never dreamed that the hard way could be this hard. I cannot even believe I have never connected the dots between certain things that have happened in my life and this aspect of Scientology's lower ethics condition of being trained and conditioned and programmed to think that if someone is a member of your group, you can by definition trust them, and they are by definition your friend. And all friends are equal to all friends. There's no special friend group in Scientology. They're either your friend or they're not. And usually someone is your friend as defined by their relation to the group. If someone is a productive group member, they're your friend. If someone forward the aims of the group, they're your friend. And it has absolutely nothing with how they treat you. And now that I see it this way, it's almost like it seems like it's a very, very much an intentional aspect of the Scientology brainwashing. Because now I'm looking at it and I go, how weird is it to think that everyone in your group needs to be your friend? You don't even actually have anything to do with everyone in your group. Why is it necessary to condition people to think of them as friends? Like, it's almost like there's friends, not friends, and there's no real spectrum. It's not like coworkers, acquaintances, associates, and then friends. In Scientology, this concept that that you just have perhaps a handful of people who are true friends, this isn't a concept in Scientology. It's everyone in the group who's a high producer is your friend. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. And for me, I think what it has caused me to do is in many cases, well, I mean, I say in many, realistically, in almost every case, it has caused me to feel not only that just because someone is more or less a member of my group or an activity I'm engaged in, not only does it mean I can trust them, but it means I should also want to. And that if I didn't, there'd be something wrong with that. Scientology would probably call it a bit of an individuation from the group and other group members. That you're actually forcing yourself to trust people just because they happen to be in your group, and that trusting someone and someone being your friend is pretty much the same thing, and that any member of the group who's in a higher condition is a trusted member of the group and therefore is your friend. It really opens you up to just being completely exploited and taken advantage of by people who just actually are not your friend. And I never even had an inkling that I had a hang up on this based on conditioning, mental conditioning, brainwashing from Scientology and the lower ethics conditions. For me, it was like a ta-da moment, like, the clouds parted, the sky got bluer. It's crazy, huh? Let me show you another ethics condition. I was only able to find 2, although I was sure that I had a bunch more. Let me see. This one is July 13th. Let me try to find the other one. All right. Where is it? Where are you, little fella? Okay. May 3rd. Okay. This one is, wow. This one's even more cringe. Take a look at this. Okay, this is May 2003. This is when I was still on post as the technical secretary of Asho Day. Decide who are one's friends. Guys, it doesn't even say decide who are the trusted members of the group. It specifically says friends. There's no differentiation in Scientology between work life and personal life. They're the same. Decide who are one's friends. My friends are the Sea Org staff that are getting the show on the road and take action on their own initiative to implement management's programs and thereby forward command intention and expand their orgs. What in the fuck does that have to do with whether someone is your friend or not? This is what started really blowing my mind. Is I was like, oh my God. I've literally been trained to think that just because someone is doing what the head of the group would like them to be doing, that makes them my friend. And only a Scientologist would think that makes any sense at all. It's crazy. My friends are the Sea Org staff that are getting the show on the road and take action on their own initiative to implement management's programs and thereby forward command intention and expand their orgs. What if there's a Sea Org member who fits all that criteria, but they treat you like shit, they spread rumors about you, they insult you, they bully you, they write false reports on you, they do all those things, but they're getting the show on the road and they're taking action on their own initiative to implement management's programs and thereby forward command intention and expand their orgs? By golly, they are to be trusted and they are a friend, and you are to support them and you are to attack their enemies. And you are to do this despite personal danger. These are the other steps of the formula, by the way. This has to do with the brainwashing, the additional steps of the brainwashing of what I have come to think a friend has to be, and not to think in terms of anything else in deciding who are one's actual friends, because I've still been thinking my friends are people who do the same thing I'm doing in the way that it ought to be done. And those are my friends. And I can trust anyone who says they're doing that or might be doing that or should be doing that without any regard for whether that person has actually shown me personally any qualities of what a friend would be. The other steps of the liability formula. Step 1, decide who are one's friends. Step 2, deliver an effective blow to the enemies of the group that one has been pretending to be a part of, despite personal danger. Meaning, deliver an effective blow despite personal danger. Make up the damage that one has done by personal contribution far beyond the ordinary demands of a group member. And then step 4, apply for re-entry to the group by asking permission of each member to rejoin the group, and only rejoining the group by majority permission. That's right. So if you've got someone who treats you like crap personally, but they're engaged in a similar activity, and therefore, according to the liability condition, they are your friend, the next thing that you have to do is to deliver an effective blow to the enemy of these friends that you're describing. And you have to deliver a blow to the enemy, not in some anonymous hiding behind some way that doesn't have any blowback. You've got to deliver an effective blow in a way that actually puts you at risk. That's how you show you're a true friend in Scientology for this step. Make up the damage to the friends in step 1. Make up the damage by personal contribution far beyond the ordinary demands of a group member. All of the ways I've been trained to think about a friend all have to do with only caring about that person's relationship to the group that I am also a part of, without any regard whatsoever for any actual qualities of a friend. And that had never occurred to me. In the 10 years that I've been officially out of Scientology, in the 15 years that I have sort of in reality been out of Scientology, I didn't even know that I had this blind spot. It's one of the reasons I've been kind of quiet the last many days. I've been thinking about this one very, very hard. And thinking about all the ways that this blind spot has impacted me in my life since leaving Scientology. Assuming that someone is your friend and worthy of your trust and your loyalty and your support and your respect, just because they're doing something similar to what you're doing, and not because they've ever demonstrated those qualities to you or shown you that they're worthy of them. I've only ever thought that someone was worthy of those qualities from me if they were engaged in a similar activity to what I was doing. That's a hell of a blind spot, you guys. That is a hell of a blind spot. That's pretty much it, guys. I don't have anyone in the back office right now starring comments for me, and I don't see anything starred here. So that's it. Yeah. I got to go out of here and go meet someone real quick anyway. So there we go. I'm looking for anything right here at the end. No, that's all right. Yeah, we're going to leave it at that, guys. Deep thoughts with AA Run. This truly has been the part of Scientology that has been the hardest to let go. The Scientology brainwashing that's been the hardest to let go. I didn't even know it was there. There we go, guys. Let me know in the comments section if this, if you're a former Scientologist, does this mean anything to you? Have you struggled with this? Had you already spotted this? How long did it take you when you were out? How long did it take you after leaving Scientology to realize something was wrong with this decide who are your friends step? All right, guys, thank you for hanging out with me. This is going to be all for me this evening. I got to get out of here, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, oh, yeah, keep on my love, then then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe